Hello, I'm Victor Kim, minister here at Richmond Presbyterian Church, and welcome to our midweek meditation. This is the first meditation for 2022, and so I want to wish all of you who are watching a very happy new year, and I pray that 2022 would be a year of renewed health and the continuation of God's presence and God's care and blessing for all of us, no matter what this year may hold in store for us. Now, we've been away for the past couple of weeks, taking a bit of a break over the holidays. So this is the first meditation, but I want to take you back 1 week to January the 6th, which would have been last Thursday. And January the 6th is Epiphany in the church calendar. But January 6th is also now the anniversary of the insurrection on the US Capitol, the first anniversary this year of the insurrection on the US Capitol. And I think, at least for the time being, these two events, Epiphany and this insurrection, will now be linked on January the 6th. If you were watching any of the news last week, it would have been impossible to miss this anniversary of the insurrection on the US Capitol. All the newscasts were talking about it. They were wondering, what would President Biden say? What would the former president have to say about this? What steps were going to be taken in the US to address what took place on that day a year ago? And it was truly a horrible event, an assault on one of the key symbols of democracy. Whatever you may think of the United States, it still was an assault on one of the key symbols of democracy. But if you were watching the news or if you're watching television at all last week, I don't think you would have heard one single piece about Epiphany. And maybe that's the way it should be. I mean, who in our world today cares about something that happened over 2,000 years ago in a far distant land when there are so many more pressing matters for us to be concerned about? I mean, we have these huge political divisions, right? This polarization. We have this pandemic panic. We have these climate catastrophes, just to name a few. Yes, we face clear and present dangers today, huge challenges in our immediate context. But I think Epiphany might have more to tell us than just the story from long time ago. There is a connection between the story of Epiphany and the stories of our time. And that connection needs to be told. It requires our attention. We usually associate the visit of the wise men or the Magi with Epiphany. Now, remember the story, right? These Magi from a distant land followed a star that proclaimed an important event, the birth of a king, the birth of the Messiah. And that star led them to Jerusalem. And when they were there, they spoke with the king in charge, a king named Herod. And they told him, we're looking for where the location is that the king of the Jews would be born. And Herod, full of fear, consulted with his experts who told him that the Messiah would be born in Bethlehem. So Herod told the Magi, it's Bethlehem. So go to Bethlehem and look for him. And when you find him, please come and tell me so that I too may go and worship him. The Magi, of course, followed the star to Bethlehem, and they found Jesus, and they worshiped him, and they presented him with their gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. But having been warned in a dream, they chose not to return to Herod, and they returned home by a different road. So this confluence of Epiphany and the insurrection against the Capitol reminds us that we have choices to make, and we have competing voices, competing kings that vie for our attention and our allegiance. There are lots of Herods around these days, but their motivations are the same: power, ego, greed, fear, to name some. And whether it concerns our politics, whether it concerns issues around our public health like the pandemic or our climate or a whole host of other matters, there are different voices that compete for our allegiance and for our attention. And the story of the Magi reminds us that we need to be careful in terms of who we listen to. Consider the motivation of those who would have us follow them. What motivates them? What guides them? What or who do they worship? Consider what their response would be to the message of Jesus. How do those who want our allegiance respond to the claims of Jesus, our King, to a vision of a kingdom where the defining characteristics are not about ego or power, greed or fear, but are rather rooted in humility and service, generosity, compassion, love, justice? There are choices to be made every day, and there are voices that can and should guide us. Again, when Herod asked his priests and scribes where the Messiah was to be born, they quoted the prophet Micah, who wrote that it would be Bethlehem. And Bethlehem would be by no means the least among the rulers of Judah, for from Bethlehem shall come a ruler who is to shepherd God's people. When we listen to the voices that compete for our attention, our allegiance, might we consider who among them would act as a shepherd? Which voice acts as a shepherd? Which voices seek to love people, protect people, and respect the world, the creation that God loves? Which voice, who, would help us to live worshipful lives of respect, humility, inclusion, and grace? There are decisions to be made. And Epiphany, the story of Epiphany, is so important to us in our present context for the decisions that lie ahead of us. As we begin this new year, my friends, may we choose wisely, and may we listen to the voice of our God. God bless you throughout this year, and I know that God will be with all of us. I'd like you to now listen to a beautiful meditation prepared by our music director, Dr. Jannie Burdeti, and we'll see you again next week. God bless.